Hey, Casas Adobe's Pastor John here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Fun Day School today and what we're doing. So, have you heard about miracles and what miracles are? Sometimes we think about miracles being the big things in the Bible, like the Red Sea parting and uh, water turning into wine, all those big kind of things. And sometimes there are big miracles. There are also little miracles too. And so we're going to be talking about all kinds of miracles. And what I would like to talk about is what is expected. What is expected of you? And so we have two scriptures today, and one of the scriptures, and I don't think we're going to be covering it too much in Fun Day School, but I thought I would cover it in the family message just so that we can have consistency across. But it's a story about King David, and King David is acting very, very badly, and he gets called out on it, and he does something really, really bad. He takes someone's wife, and there's a prophet named Nathan who says to him, we got a problem. There's a guy who has one sheep, one little sheep, and I got my sheep duck left over from last week. He's got one sheep, and he loves that sheep dearly. And then another guy who has a flock of like 100 sheep came and took that one guy's sheep, and then he killed him. And do you think that's fair? David gets mad. He says, the guy with 100 sheep, he should be thrown in jail. That is so wrong. Nathan says, guess what? It's you. You took Uriah's wife, and you have like a whole palace full of people to live with and to choose, and you can have anyone you want, and you took his one wife. And David was very, very sorry, and he repented, and he actually paid a very, very heavy price for doing that. But the reason why we bring him up is because David is doing what is expected of a king. And this is what Samuel, remember when Samuel was giving the people a king? He said, you don't want a king. Kings do very bad things. This is exactly what David did. He did what was expected. And so we have to move beyond expectations. So he needs to be a good king. He needs to be able to move in ways that are beyond what is expected of a king to be a good leader. So that brings us to the second story. And the second story is the story of Jesus, and he's preaching on the lake, and he's teaching and healing and doing all these wonderful things. And one of his disciples comes up and says, Jesus, it's lunchtime, and there are like 4,000 people out here. What are we going to do? 4,000, 5,000 people. What are we going to do? And Jesus said, feed them. And Philip says, if we worked for 6 months, if we worked for 6 months, we wouldn't have enough to feed them. And Jesus said, you know what? Be creative. Think of something. And so then Andrew says, you know what? There's a little boy right here, and he's got 5 loaves and 2 fish for lunch. Jesus said, I like your thinking. That's creative. And so Jesus gets the fish, and he prays, and all of a sudden, there's abundance, and they have more than enough fish and loaves for everyone. In fact, it says that there were 12 basketfuls. So from nothing, and this is for 5,000 people. So what does this teach us? Well, the disciples were doing what was expected, okay? You have a crowd of people, and you got to feed them. What's the first thing you think about? Money. Oh, I don't have money to do that. I don't have food to do that. And Jesus said, you know what? Think out of the box. Don't just do what is expected, but go beyond. Maybe someone has something. And he asked the little boy. Now, in my book, I think part of the miracle is that seeing this little boy share made everybody else share their lunch, because that little boy thought ahead and brought a lunch. Maybe other people brought a lunch, and maybe they decided to share too. And maybe in that abundance, all of those fish and loaves were spread out, and there was more than enough for everyone. And that was truly miraculous. The other miracle that isn't really said in that is, I'm sure that Andrew and Philip and everybody else there learned to think a new way. And that's a miracle too. When you do something that is beyond expectation, you sort of become a new person and you think, oh, yeah, I can do that. So the other thing I wanted to show you guys was my fish bowl. So my fish bowl was a gift from Hawaii, and from the office brought this for me. And I love it because I use it for communion sometimes, because it reminds me of that miracle of sharing, and how every time we take communion, every time we share, it's a moment for miracles. So that's what we're talking about. So come to Fun Day School if you want to learn more. Mr. Steve and Miss Marilyn are teaching, and should be a good one. All right. As always, I want you to be safe, be well, and of course, be a blessing. I'll see you at Fun Day School. All right. Peace.